In a revelation that has sent shockwaves through Spain's royal circles, Queen Letizia has allegedly broken her long-held silence about the emotional harassment she claims to have endured from her father-in-law, former King Juan Carlos. According to insiders close to the royal household, Letizia confided to trusted friends and aides that her early years in the palace were marked by constant tension, subtle intimidation, and what she describes as a relentless campaign to undermine my confidence. Sources claim that Juan Carlos, known for his strong personality and traditionalist views, allegedly found it difficult to accept a former journalist from a non-aristocratic background as the wife of his son, King Felipe VI. It wasn't shouting or overt insults, an unnamed source revealed. It was more like constant remarks, sharp jokes in front of others, questioning her decisions as a mother and a public figure, small cuts, but over time, they left deep wounds. The alleged tension reportedly escalated during family gatherings, with Juan Carlos supposedly making pointed comments about Letizia's modern approach to royal duties and her refusal to adhere strictly to certain long-standing protocols. Palace staff members, speaking anonymously, claim they witnessed moments where Letizia would leave a room abruptly, visibly shaken after a private exchange with the former king. Letizia's friends say that these experiences not only took a toll on her emotional well-being but also strengthened her determination to protect her daughters, Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia, from similar pressures. She decided early on that her girls would not grow up in fear or under the weight of outdated expectations, one confidant shared. While the Spanish royal house has not commented on these claims, supporters of Letizia argue that her courage in allegedly speaking about such a sensitive matter could spark broader conversations about the hidden emotional strains within royal families. Critics, however, warn that such revelations risk deepening divisions within the monarchy and tarnishing its image at a delicate moment in its history. As speculation swirls, one thing is certain. This alleged confession, whether whispered in private salons or recorded in a soon-to-be-revealed memoir, has already ignited a debate about respect, tradition, and the human cost of life behind palace walls. According to those who claim to have been close to the royal household, the most explosive confrontation between Queen Letizia and Juan Carlos took place behind the heavy oak doors of Zarzuela Palace during Christmas Eve of 2017, a night meant for unity, but which reportedly turned into an emotional battlefield. Guests had gathered in the grand dining hall, the smell of roasted lamb and cinnamon wine filling the air. Laughter echoed from the table, but behind the smiles, tension simmered. One witness says that Juan Carlos, already irritated by Letizia's refusal to appear in a traditional family portrait earlier that evening, raised his glass and made what was described as a barbed toast. "To the royal family as it has always been," he reportedly said, locking eyes with Letizia, "and to those who understand the weight of duty, not the weight of ambition." The room fell silent. Letizia's hands trembled slightly as she set down her glass. According to palace staff, she rose from her seat, walked toward Juan Carlos, and in a low but firm voice said, "Your Majesty, respect is not inherited with the crown, it is earned." The tension was palpable. King Felipe reportedly tried to step between them, but Juan Carlos waved him off. "You think you can change centuries of tradition because you read it in a book or spoke it on television?" he allegedly said, his tone dripping with disdain. That was the moment, according to insiders, when Letizia stopped holding back. She accused the former king of years of subtle belittlement, of treating her as an outsider, and of attempting to undermine her relationship with Felipe in front of the public and their daughters. "I am here because I love your son, and I will not leave because you dislike who I am," she reportedly declared. Some guests described Felipe's face as pale, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Queen Sofia, sitting rigid in her chair, avoided eye contact with everyone. The argument ended only when the sound of Leonor's voice from the hallway called her mother away. In the days that followed, insiders claim the atmosphere in Zarzuela Palace grew colder. Letizia withdrew from certain private events involving Juan Carlos, focusing instead on her public duties and her daughters. Meanwhile, Juan Carlos began spending more time abroad, citing personal reasons, though many now believe this was partly to avoid further clashes. In the months after that fateful Christmas Eve, the tension between Queen Letizia and Juan Carlos reportedly shifted from open confrontation to a cold, calculated silence, a kind of royal chess game, in which every move was carefully measured. Juan Carlos, once the towering patriarch of the Spanish monarchy, found himself increasingly sidelined. Letizia, according to palace insiders, began to consolidate her influence in quiet but decisive ways. She arranged her public appearances to emphasize her role as a modern queen, championing education, health, and women's rights, winning the admiration of the public, and, perhaps most importantly, the unwavering support of King Felipe. Behind the scenes, she is said to have placed trusted aides in key positions, ensuring that palace communications reflected her vision of a 21st-century monarchy. Invitations to family events where Juan Carlos was present reportedly became lost or rescheduled, always under the guise of official duties. Little by little, his opportunities to exert influence diminished. One former courtier described the change as like watching an old lion slowly realize the savannah is no longer his. Public opinion also began to turn. Scandals involving Juan Carlos's finances and personal life surfaced in the press, overshadowing his previous glory. Letizia, while never commenting directly, maintained an image of dignity and composure, allowing the contrast between them to speak for itself. The breaking point allegedly came in the spring of 2020, when Juan Carlos announced his decision to leave Spain. Officially, it was to remove distractions from his son's reign. Unofficially, some believe it was a quiet acknowledgement that the balance of power within the family had shifted irreversibly. On the morning of his departure, a palace aide claims to have seen a brief but telling exchange. As Juan Carlos prepared to step into the waiting car, Letizia approached, her face calm but her voice low. "I wish you peace, Your Majesty," she allegedly said. "And I hope you now understand, this is my family too." He reportedly gave no reply, only a faint nod before turning away. That moment, though outwardly polite, marked the end of a long and bitter private war. Today, Queen Letizia stands as one of the most visible and influential figures in Spain, her position secure and her public approval strong. Whether one sees her as a modernizing force or a shrewd strategist, few can deny that she has navigated the treacherous waters of royal politics with a determination that even her fiercest critic, the man who once tried to undermine her, could not break. With Juan Carlos gone, the palace corridors felt different, lighter, less shadowed by old grudges. Queen Letizia, though still under the constant scrutiny that comes with the crown, reportedly began to breathe easier. Friends close to her say she allowed herself small freedoms she once avoided. She would take long walks in the palace gardens without looking over her shoulder. She began inviting her closest friends from her journalism days to private dinners, something she had rarely dared to do in the past. And most significantly, she started to spend more uninterrupted time with her daughters, Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia, often reading together in the evenings or cooking simple meals in a private kitchen away from the formality of staff service. Publicly, Letizia's popularity continued to rise. Her speeches carried a new confidence, her smiles and official photos seemed warmer, less guarded. Observers noted how King Felipe often looked at her during events, with a mixture of pride and gratitude, as if silently acknowledging the battles she had fought, both seen and unseen. In the summer of 2021, a rare scene caught the attention of the press. At an event in Oviedo, Letizia was photographed laughing openly with a group of young women she was mentoring. There was no stiffness in her posture, no trace of the icy reserve that had once been her armor. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her, a royal correspondent remarked.